I am so excited to get to be speaking today with Clara Bullard, one of our beloved church members. Hi, Clara. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Great. Well, will you introduce yourself for those who have not gotten to meet you yet? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Clara, and um, I am actually from Charlottesville, which is unique or
Aw.
rare at CCC. And I'm an ESL teacher at Greenbrier Elementary School.
So, teaching ESL online, that
Mhm.
sounds like a challenge,
It has been, yeah.
but you're making it.
Yeah. It's happening.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get to talk to you today. We're doing a thing we're calling CCC Stories, where we're hearing for people who are serving in our local community in various ways. And I immediately thought of you and wanted to talk to you because of your job, you get to meet a lot of refugee families. And so I would love for you to tell us some about what opportunities you've had to serve and meet needs and share the gospel with refugees in our community.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I definitely get to know a lot of people through my work, but I also got to know some refugees before I was an ESL teacher. So I think it's, I feel like my job gives me great avenues to get to know people, but it's not, definitely some of the relationships cross over like out of the professional and into sort of more personal. So yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is just like relationships. I spend a lot of time going to people's homes and um, things sort of flow out of that. Like families will ask for help um, reading their mail or doing an application for work or for housing, just a lot of needs with people who have limited English and who are new to the country and don't always understand how um, things work. And
Mm.
then obviously, as a teacher, I get to know the kids, and that's also something that I really enjoy. So I coach soccer teams with a lot of refugee kids, and I teach swimming lessons in the summer, and just in general enjoy kind of taking kids out and doing things with them. And that's a great means to get to know families as well.
Mhm. So do you recruit kids for the soccer team and for the swim lessons or what?
I don't know if recruit is the word, but um, as new students come, um, generally, pretty much most kids that are not from the U.S. love soccer, so it's a good way to get them involved in something, and especially for kids who are not really speaking English or maybe aren't doing super well in school, it's often something that they can be really good at and even better than their peers. And the trickiest part is just transportation. So that's kind of why I've continued coaching as long as I have, because there's always more kids that need a way to get to soccer. So I put them on my team and then I can pick them up and
Hmm.
bring them to games and practices.
That's great. What do you think that people who've grown up in the States, what do we need to understand about the refugee experience?
That's a good question. Um, I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize how different cultures operate. Um, so I think some big things that I've kind of learned are like cultural differences with time. Um, like in Africa, time is a lot more fluid, and the people that you're with are more important than any previous engagement that you have. So that's just something I think if you haven't experienced that, you don't necessarily know. But this is like thinking of a family that's new here, that's experiencing a totally new culture, and they're totally immersed and don't really have the choice to um, step out of it. You know, they're here, and usually not. It's somewhat by choice. They wanted to come to the U.S., but it wasn't necessarily their choice to have to leave their home country. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, can you tell us some about what opportunities God has opened for you with refugees to share the gospel? What have you seen God do in these relationships that you have?
Yeah. Um, I think that that's definitely something that I would like to do even more. And um, it's not always easy to know how to be sharing the gospel, but it is something that I think a lot of the families that I know are pretty willing to talk about, things of faith. Um, Generally, most refugees believe something, whether they're Muslim or from a cultural Christian background, but often I feel like there's not like a true understanding of the gospel. But there is usually a lot of openness to um, just talk about God more so than I would say with Americans, because it's generally cultures that a lot of the refugees are coming from. It's a very culturally religious places.
Hmm.
So there have been good opportunities. Yeah.
Do you have a story that you would want to tell us about
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
conversation or
What
yeah,
did you say?
maybe I have heard you talk about a conversation that you had recently. I was just wondering if you have stories that you would help that could explain kind of that openness to hearing about God.
Yeah. So I have one about a little guy, which is kind of a funny story, but I got to know this family over the spring and summer because the kids were out of school, and it's a single mom who was still working just 2 days a week. So I ended up babysitting for the four kind of young kids. The oldest is 11. And then towards the end of the summer, they had this whole experience with one of the kids needing dental work, which there's not a lot of opportunities in Charlottesville for Medicaid dental work. So they were referred to VCU. So they don't drive. I ended up taking them to a couple appointments in Richmond. And so one of the days in the car, I was just kind of praying for an opportunity to just talk about faith and the gospel. And the mom was, in the front seat. She was kind of on her phone, and two of the kids were sleeping, but the little guy, the 5-year-old, was like chatting with me the whole way. And he just sort of out of the blue is like, I need a new heart. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he said, my heart is bad and it makes me do bad things and I need a new heart. And I was like, wow, if that is not an opportunity,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what is. And I still don't really know where that came from or like what prompted him to say that other than the Holy Spirit. So for me, that was really convicting, just the need to pray for opportunities and recognize that God provides those.
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and Charlottesville is a huge refugee, a place where refugees are. We are, what is it called? A refugee city, or is that right?
Yeah. Resettlement city.
Okay. So there's a lot of opportunities to get to know refugees. And so I'd love to hear from you for people in our church who have a heart for that, or maybe they're intrigued by what you're saying and they're thinking, what's the entry point for me? How do I get involved in this kind of thing? What would you say? How can we even come alongside you and what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think what I've seen in Charlottesville is that it's a super tolerant and super welcoming community in general. And so there are a lot of people and a lot of organizations and a lot of um, programs, whether that's, social services programs or various things that support refugees. Um, and I have encountered a lot of people that are very like committed, like my coworkers who teach ESL, um, There's the International Neighbors is an organization that does a lot with refugees. But just as I've been thinking about it, it's not a huge number compared to the number of people thinking of all the people I know that are involved with refugees, a pretty small percentage are Christians.
Hmm.
So I think that there's a lot of things that people can do to help refugees physically and tangibly, but what we as the church have to offer that's different is the gospel. And so, yeah, just thinking about like what that would look like for our church. I think the biggest thing, of course, would be people forming relationships with individuals where they can have those opportunities to share the gospel. Um, so yeah, if there are people in the church that would want to, think about doing that, I'd be happy to help connect people or sort of help people get started if they need that. And then the other thing that came to mind is prayer. So I know that like right now it's COVID, people aren't necessarily in a place where they're ready to go into someone else's home, and that's understandable. But if you are interested in being involved and can't do it physically, um, I'd also be happy to like send people specific prayer requests and things like that if someone wanted to be involved that way.
I love that. Those are two great ideas. If you're watching and you want to connect with Clara, you can contact us at the church and we can connect you with her. And I know that in the past I've talked to Clara. She's already doing this so well that even if you don't know how to build a relationship with someone, I know that she would be open to you shadowing her, learning from her and what she's already learned through trial and error how to do this. And I know she would say that she's still growing in it, but I think that's one way that shadowing her and letting her connect you with people that she's already in relationship with. So contact us. We want to help you minister to the refugees in our community. And I love that Clara brought up we need Christians doing this, that Christians who can meet spiritual needs and we can share the gospel with the people that are coming from all over the world to our community. So we have a great opportunity. So thank you, Clara. I'm so thankful for what you do, not only with refugees, but how you serve the Lord faithfully in other areas of our community and our church. But thank you for your time today and sharing about this.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
thankful for your ministry.
Thanks, Christine.